welcome back to class. So last class we spoke a little bit about stakeholders as the first strategic approach to building projects better. We said, look, we need to at least identify who the stakeholders are and how they relate to each other and all of that, right? So we talked about social networks, all of that kind of stuff. Now, once you've identified who the stakeholders are, you then have to positively negotiate with them, right? So another important skill to think about and pick up is the art of negotiation, right? How do you deal with stakeholders? How do you actually get to situations that are mutually acceptable and which can push the project forward and so on. So the theme of today's class is to really talk about negotiation, right? So historically, I've already started this class with a small exercise, and we'll do the same today. We'll have a couple of exercises actually, and so we'll start off with having you guys negotiate with each other. Can I ask all of you to sit in pairs, right? So this is a pairwise negotiation, so you need two people. So sit in groups of two. Okay, can you guys rearrange yourselves so you're all sitting in groups of two? And if there's an odd person out, then you'll have to wait for somebody to. All right, so that is step number one. Step number two is, can I also request you guys not to sit in pairs, not to sit right next to each other, because I don't want you to overhear what others are saying. So there are a couple of, so this group is fine. It's essentially one person per seat, although I'm going to have some of you move back a little bit. Here, can you guys move a little, go back? There's space here, right? So I want you to have your own space for negotiation. Okay, all right. So, okay, so this is our, I still think we can, and by the way, you can, although the back of the class is a bit dark, that's absolutely fine for this exercise, right? So once we start off, if you feel the need to relocate, relocate. So the rules are simple. What I'm going to do is give you guys, give all of you a piece of paper, right, in which there is something written. You will have a few minutes to read it, after which you will have to give the paper back to me. And that paper will then instruct you as to what the situation is and what you're going to negotiate about. All right. So essentially, you guys negotiate with each other for about, this is a simple exercise, so we'll do like 5-ish minutes of negotiation and then we'll stop. If you've reached a settlement, that's great. If you've not reached a settlement, that's fine. But we get introduced to the process of negotiating. Okay. All right. So I'm going to come down now and hand over these papers to you, and I'll collect them in a minute or two. So look at it. It's pretty simple. Just look at it. It's pretty easy to read. So I think by the time I traverse the entire class, I'll probably come back and start picking it up. Right. All right. Can you guys move back a bit? You guys can start reading if you've got the. You guys also have to get your papers back. Regular class Okay, time's up. All right, so everyone just stop for a moment. Okay, let's just see how many pairs do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 pairs. Okay, how many of you did not reach a resolution, have not reached a resolution yet, right? Who are still negotiating. Okay, that's fine. So 1, 2, 3, just hands up again, please. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pairs. So 6 pairs have reached some kind of a resolution. 6 pairs have not. Okay. Because this is also being videotaped and people who are watching it might have no clue about what's going on, I should probably, very quickly summarize what's out there. Each group was given each person was given a piece of paper One person in each group was given a paper that read, negotiate your sister to safety, and one person was given a paper that read, negotiate your mother to safety. For the person who had to negotiate their sister to safety, the story is that your sister ate at the hostel mess and is suffering from severe food poisoning, which is an absolutely believable occurrence. The food poisoning is potentially fatal, and so she cannot survive for long. Again, highly believable. And there is only one way to cure her. There is a particular chicken called the gunya chicken, nothing to do with chicken gunya, which has an egg which is of great value, and you essentially need to procure that egg. Problem is, there's only one pair of gunya chickens. They lay only one egg every 100 years, and there's one now. So essentially, you either get this egg, otherwise your sister in this case is doomed. You are of course a very resourceful person, so you have figured out where this egg is, but as you go towards the egg, you find somebody else who also wants to get that egg, which is your partner in the negotiation, who is trying to negotiate their mother to safety, because their mother is also terminally ill, mortally wounded, having tried to hitchhike across the galaxy. How many of you get the reference? Only one? Okay, Arjun, educate us. Where is the reference from? Okay, it's Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which at least when I was a BTech, everyone read. Right, so clearly something has changed in the intervening years, but it's a sort of a cult classic, sort of a funny book to read. Essentially, in that, so there is a, something called the ravenous bug-blatter beast of Tral, which if you read the book you will come across, which has mauled your mother. Your mother is ill, and of course it's again that gunya chicken's egg that can save her. So essentially, the negotiation is there are two of you, and both of you require that egg, and there's only sort of one of these eggs, and both of you require it, right? So you've got to negotiate with the other person. Okay, so let's start now with some of the groups that did not reach settlement. So for those of you who threw up your hands, what were you guys talking about? What was how did the negotiation go? Did somebody want to volunteer? What happened in those 5 minutes? Fantastic. Okay, so so there is some amount of, first of all, there's a discussion. In this group, there's a discussion about the comparative value of a mother versus a sister. What did you guys conclude? I'm sure the world is waiting to know. Okay, you guys didn't conclude, and that's where you stopped. Okay, other groups that reached an impasse, what were you discussing about? Yes. Okay, so you're trying to figure out, if I give up my mother, what's the compensation? What did you guys, what was your potential compensation packages that you discussed? Right, give up your mother, I'll give you this.
We came up with stories that mother is the only family I have, and
Okay.
sister is the only family the other person has.
Okay, yeah, great. So mother is the only family you have, sister is the only family that the other person has. Okay.
So if they got the sister, like we can live together with one motherly love will be there for everyone.
Okay, all right. So give up the sister, fine. Okay. Other groups, did you guys also do give up the sister, or did any of you give up your mother? Okay, what about some other groups? Right, so again, you're trying to, essentially it comes down to relative value, right? So I want something, what can I give you in return? Give me the egg, I'll save my mother, and she can also be your mother because clearly you don't have any other family. Okay, all of these points were discussed. Was there anything else that was discussed? Correct. Okay, so great. So we've got vegetarians. In the past, I've had Jains in the class, right? And anyone here is a Jain? Okay, Parthik. I don't know if you guys use that argument, but I've got people who are sitting on the other sides of the Jain saying you're a good Jain boy or a Jain girl, whatever. How can you even think of consuming that egg? It has to sort of go to me. So that argument again is, even if I gave you the egg, how could you possibly eat it? You're vegetarian, right? So might as well just give it to me, right? And at least one life can be saved. Fantastic. Okay, so there are, and okay, so even for the groups that came to a settlement, what are the kinds of trades that you guys offered? Anyone offer any different kinds of trades? Let's start there with Arjun and Jayakishan. Yeah, what kinds of trade? Yeah, we'll get to that. But are there trades that you guys offered? Okay. All right, but okay. So who offered a few trades before you guys came to a settlement? Because there are all kinds of, we've had people offering, well, of course, money, right? Because I think it says here that you guys are both well endowed, all other kinds of things, which unfortunately I can't state on camera. There were some very creative solutions. My most creative one was, if you let your mother die, then I will let you marry my sister, right? Was one of the most, I don't know, did any of you discuss that at all? So I love that one because I think that was a win-win, etc. Okay, all right. So now let's go to the groups that made a settlement, right? And now you guys, Arjun and Jayakishan, you tell us what was the settlement that you guys came up with. Right. So essentially, if you read, and so the groups that came to settlements, did you guys all reach the same settlement, or did you have other settlements? Okay, so if you read it carefully, and this is, I mean, it was on purpose that I took it back for you and didn't give you enough time. But if you read it carefully, it says in the negotiate your mother to safety, the only way your mother can survive is by eating the white of one entire gunia chicken egg. And if you look at the other one with the sister, it says the only way your sister can survive is by eating the yolk of one entire gunia chicken egg. Essentially, it's the same sentence. I've just sort of changed white here and yolk there, right? Right. So essentially, what looks like what one might call a zero-sum game in terms of one person has to win and the other has to lose. If you read it a little carefully, it turns out that there is a win-win that's possible, right? So in this case, you just boil the egg, you take the yolk and give it to somebody, you take the white, give it to somebody, and therefore that gunia chicken egg can actually save both people at the same time, right? So essentially, the lesson there is, and of course, I mean, there's not enough time that was given. Maybe some of you read it carefully, remembered it, like Jay Kishan is saying, sometimes the conversation just took that kind of a turn. And you came to that solution very quickly. In some cases, the conversation took a different turn, and I'm pretty sure if I had given you guys 15 minutes at some point, you guys would have found that out. Anyway, but the point there is that the two things here. One is that sometimes we look at these kinds of negotiations, and off the top, they look like they are zero-sum games. It looks like if I win, you lose. So if I drill for oil, your habitat goes, right? Or if I want to preserve your habitat, then I can't dig for oil. So it looks black and white, zero sum, 0 and 1, whatever. But very often negotiations are like this. They look like there's one egg, both people need it, one has to win, the other has to lose. But then when you get deeper, you probably find that there are solutions that are win-win, right? So in this case, clearly one person can take the egg, one person can take the white, and the other takes the yolk, and they both survive, right? So the thing about negotiations is that most negotiations are probably have some win-win in them, and therefore it's a question of how skilled are you in terms of finding that win-win, right? Which takes us to the second lesson, which is therefore the way you negotiate then becomes important. So body language. So when I looked around, I saw, well, of course, some of you got it very quickly, but there are lots of interesting body languages. Right, so in certain cases, you guys are not even looking at each other when you're negotiating, right? So you're, whereas in other cases, the negotiation's a bit more animated. Once, many years ago, the teacher in the, of course, I was teaching in regular classroom, professor from the neighboring classroom actually had to come and ask the students to shut up because it was, getting to be, there was a lot of energy in that negotiation. So different styles of negotiating. And I think we need to understand, how do you negotiate? How do we get to a point where it's not by chance that you stumble on this, I need the yolk, you need the white, but it's actually a systematic, series of events that you enact that will always lead to the most optimal solution, right? So that's essentially, therefore, there is something, we've got to understand, is there a science towards negotiation? Is it just blind luck, right? Some of you read the right word and, had that eye for detail, you got lucky, or is there actually something that can be learned, right? And a long time ago, negotiation people thought was essentially an art, right? So some people are skilled negotiators, you can communicate well, you're good with people, you can negotiate well, and I'm an introverted person and I can't negotiate well, and so it becomes, it's almost genetic whether you're a good negotiator or not. But then over a period of time, I think people started doing a little bit of research and breaking down negotiation into a variety of principles that can be learned. Right, and getting to the point where Harvard Business School took the lead, or Harvard University, I'm not sure it was the business school, took the lead. They actually have something that's still ongoing called the Program on Negotiation. Right, where they actually started doing research, breaking it down, and essentially said, look, I can teach you principles, and if you apprentice yourself to somebody who's good at it, and you sort of, it's just like engineering, right? I can teach you some basic concepts of engineering, I can teach you about strengths of materials and, design and etc. And then if you really understand that, you can design whatever you want. It isn't something that, only a skilled person can do, right? We can teach anybody to design. So similarly, it turns out that a lot of people believe that you can teach negotiation, right? That there are certain basic principles, and then of course it's a question of practice, just like anything else, like learning to ride a bicycle, right? Obviously it's very difficult in the beginning, but there's a way in which I can teach you to swim or to learn to ride a bicycle, and then depending on how much you practice, you're a good swimmer or a good cyclist, or you can just sort of barely stay afloat or stay on top of the bike, right? So it turns out that negotiation actually can be learned, right? And so what we're going to do today, the rest of the class, is talk a little bit about what those principles of negotiation are, right? So which group was on tap to present today, you guys? So why don't you come and talk to us about the readings and what we can learn about negotiation.
Fair process and negotiation. So fair process is the goal of every negotiation, and at the end we should all give the hand. The first reading was about managing in the knowledge economy. So it was about of course, the management in economy, which is based in strategic management. That's the top level of management, the CEOs. They're setting up an organization's needs and aims and goals for the future for a specific period, mostly above 5 years. And between the strategic management on the upper level and the down level is the operative management, which is the increasing of employees' motivations to work and participate in the future for the daily task. And all this is a really, really long process and a tough process for the economy, for the companies. And if you would translate it to the managing and stakeholders, I put it up in a table where we have the strategic, that's the government, the companies, the industry. In the center we have the tactical, and on the right side the operative. The operative, if it's in an infrastructure project, is of course the affected people, the locals, the publics, the society, which is controlled by the government. On the other hand, the strategic is the government, the companies, the industry, which controls those people. And there's a search of management which is in the gap between, which could be creative people, modern people, and educated people. And it's no doubt that technological feasible projects are maybe always the most efficient, but not the most beautiful or the most best for the publics. If we, for example, look back at the Agia River project from last lesson, we can't say that it's good to dam a river instead of creating a suburb or something, a recreational area for people which has lots of biodiversity, for example. And another problem of negotiation process is, as you see in the middle, the modern people and the well-educated people are mostly in governments and companies and in the industry, and these people are experienced and the age is way higher, so they have really good education. And when you, for example, see affected people or local people in India, which are living close by a river or in the natural areas and in biodiversity areas, they are not very educated and not modern at all, I think. So that's a thing you should keep in mind when you're planning a negotiation. So the process is not the outcome of a project. When we see in the start, a project, and especially infrastructure projects, they last for a long time. When you build a new railway or road, it has to be controlled and to keep in system all the time. It can have problems with the road or anything could happen. So we should keep in mind that the process, not just it starts in advance, or it also ends after the outcome of a project. Another problem is the rational human behavior. When we think about, for example, waste treatment or sewage treatment, I don't want to pick up waste, but it's not good. It's another extra effort for myself, but it will help it will affect lots of other people. It would affect the whole biodiversity, for example. And a manager should find what's really driving each stakeholder to participate in the negotiation process. That's what a fair process is, to find out all attitudes and behaviors critical to high performance. That's what the manager should do. He should see every stakeholder's interest and builds trust. Of course, to give one in the end of a process a hand is not a human border, it's also like a border of education to give another one the hand. And build trust and create and increase voluntary cooperation. And the first research area was in multinational corporations, which were back in the economy. For example, Volkswagen, they changed the manufacturing technology in their companies, and all from the loan system, how somebody is judged and paid by their work, from a cellular from an individual system to a cellular system. That's exactly what the rational behavior of humans is pointed out in this. And the principle is, of course, engagement involving more and more people, explanation through transparency and documentation. But what's transparency? It's hard to find what's transparency. If you would ask if volunteers could go inside a negotiation process and see what the big companies really are doing behind the scenes, you never know. So that's what they should share more about. And that's why we have educated people, maybe students, NGOs, which interact between those levels of management. and the expectation, yeah, who's responsible for what. And in a fair process, every idea should be viewed as not feasible, but you should at least bring it to the table and discuss it and find alternatives. And in negotiation analysis, they did that the best alternative to negotiate agreements is like a circle. You have to, because the long process of an negotiation is really, it spins in a circle. The interest will occur by day to day. New interests will occur. The power will change. Values will change. What do you think if you have more, for example, biodiversity? It's a better outcome for recreational areas. The ethnics will change. You have migration, more and more people, tourists, everything will come. Barriers will change, and all the parties which are involved, they should evaluate the best alternative to negotiation. And what is negotiation power? When we come back to the schedule where we have on the right-hand side, it's strategic management. It's of course the power of skill of knowledge when you go into a negotiation. Educated people, top managers are more educated than the others and than the locals. The power of a good relationship, build relationships. Power of a good alternative, power of an elegant solution. An elegant solution means to bring everyone to the table and discuss it out. Power of legitimacy and power of commitment. And it should also, it should be in scale. Sometimes locals for publics. You should ask for unbreakable commitment, and in the end, identifying fundamental interests is the most important thing what management and negotiation processes, I would say. Thank you.
So good afternoon, everyone. I will be talking about making participation work when the interest conflict. This was one reading in the. Now, actually, planners come up with different problems because there are many stakeholders and many groups involved while handling an issue. So there might be many cases where there is a conflict, and if there are n number of stakeholders or people who are conflicting, the process becomes very messy. So public participation in a planning process can be messy, unpredictable, and uncertain. So there is a case in May 2000, the State of California Department and Parks and Recreation of Highway Motor Vehicle Recreation, OHMVR. Actually, they want to regulate the use of highway motor vehicles, and they have to collaborate with many number of stakeholders. So the purpose was to enhance the OHMVR's division's ability to provide quality of highway recreation opportunities in safe and environmentally responsible manner. So they were expecting it to be a consensus-oriented process, respecting the needs of all affected parties and focused on identifying the best method to manage the OHV program. But they have had a collaborative approach which is already used by an in-house facilitator, and this had not been successful. So what they did was they asked one Lisa Butler, Associate Director of Center for Collaborative Policy and California State University, to come up with a solution for a planning solution. So let's see how she handles. So when she came, actually there was too many years already spent over this issue, and the main thing she focused upon was the people actually don't know what the agreements would be. Like, stakeholders had no idea what could even be negotiated. They were not going to talk to each other, and they were like conflicting. So she did reframing, acknowledging mutual vulnerability and defining common challenges. So instead of asking all at once, tell me your problems, she discussed with each party and asked for attention, and just made him understand that the issue will not get solved if you will keep on conflicting. You have to understand that the problem is not going anywhere, and you have to we have to come up with a collaborative solution. So the classic reframing involved moving from an initial problem solving to focus to a shared agreement. Then she moved towards joint education, where she helped all the stakeholders to talk together in less adversarial way and begin to explore disputed issues. So what she did was she had this assume a wall kind of thing in which all the stakeholders' problems are individually plotted, and then they frame like which problem is of higher priority and which is of less priority. So mind mapping exercise was to focus the energy in the room not at each other but at the wall of problems on the substantive issues and priorities that the group together need to discuss. So instead of conflict fighting with each other, all the group's energy was focused on this wall and solving the issue. Then coming to the next, listening for more than words, analyzing underlying interest. So every stakeholder was asked to give a reason for the solution he is providing, like what is the thinking behind the solution he is giving. So they explain why that they think this is the optimum solution. It's their reasoning that provides what is their interest in. So this is such listening for underlying interest is the classic mediator's response. So mediating participation rather than moderating debate. So there are two types a planner can take a debate from. Either it can be a moderating way or a mediating way. What moderating way does it turns argument towards counter argument, and so it encourages the risk escalation and debate. What mediating does instead is turns parties towards their multiple and diverse interest, and so it encourages practical proposals to negotiate. So she told like we should go towards more of a mediating approach than for a moderating approach. At the end, working with anger, harnessing the energy in acrimony. So when she saw the energy in the room, like people were conflicting with each other very harshly, so she told like this energy can be used for a better purpose, and this energy, wherever there is the energy, there is a positive power for solving the issues. So what she told each of them is, reality of today is this situation isn't working for you and all of you. So are you going to willing to take a risk to be in a conversation? So if first of all the parties were not even talking to each other, not even taking, so then she asked these questions, and so all of this process she came up like with there are 6 principles which we can planners should recognize and work proactively to move beyond community members dissatisfactions and past government efforts. So as we can see in the case, the past government have already used the collaborative process. So now Lisa comes and use a more proactive approach, and then this issue is solved. Second is when stakeholders turn to mutual blaming and recrimination, planners can use indirect strategies to explore issues, enable learning, and simultaneously build relationship. And that's called mind mapping. So instead of pointing out each other and fighting with each other, they are now focused toward a particular goal of solving the big picture. Because particular parties often bring suspicions and vulnerability to community planning encounters, such meetings may often benefit from using trained mediators. So like Lisa was a trained mediator, so she instead of moderating, she mediated the debate. Planning educators and practitioners should cultivate a broad repertoire of skills and strategies for planning in face of conflict. Mediating participation requires deliberate recognizing the past and addressing the future possibilities. And the last one is the same, because mediating participation means build feasible and mutual beneficial agreement to act. Planners must be able to distinguish between fostering dialogues, moderating debates, and mediating negotiations. So always the mediating negotiations is the one which will able the planners to help, and moderating debates will just give a counter agreement to that. So now my friend Avani will take the next topic.